Not 100. Over 800 separate fires are actively tearing through southern Europe right at this moment. The earth is not just burning, it is breathing out toxic rivers of flame that are moving faster than a highway sports car. Emergency crews are standing on melting asphalt roads, watching entire pine forests disappear into thick red smoke before their eyes. If you want to stay informed with real, honest science stories without any clickbait or exaggeration, take a second to hit the subscribe button right now. By joining our growing community, you will always be the first to know what is truly happening across our changing planet. Let us take a deep look at why 3 of the most famous countries in Europe are fighting for their survival. To understand how southern Europe reached this breaking point, we have to look back at how the region used to look just a few decades ago. For centuries, the Mediterranean region was famous around the world for its warm, gentle summers and mild winters. Millions of travelers visited countries like Spain, France, and Italy every single year to enjoy the calm sunshine, coastal breezes, and green pine forests. Fire was always a natural part of the landscape, but it usually stayed small and easy to control. In the past, traditional farmers worked across the hillsides, keeping the grass short and clearing out dead branches from the woods. Animals like goats and sheep grazed on the dry bushes, naturally removing the extra plant material that could fuel a blaze. When small fires did break out during the dry summer months, local communities could usually put them out using simple hand tools and basic water trucks within a few hours. However, over the last 30 years, life in southern Europe changed in ways that few people noticed until it was too late. Many young people left quiet countryside villages to move into bigger cities for school and factory jobs. Thousands of small family farms were abandoned, leaving vast areas of land completely untended and overgrown. Thick bushes, dry grass, and dense brush began to grow unchecked beneath the tall pine trees, creating an invisible pile of wooden fuel waiting for a spark. At the exact same time, weather patterns across the continent started shifting into uncharted territory. Summer heat waves became much longer, hotter, and more frequent than anything recorded in modern history. The cool sea breezes that used to bring relief to coastal towns were replaced by scorching desert winds blowing straight across the sea from North Africa. These hot winds pulled every single drop of moisture out of the dirt, trees, and leaves until the ground became as dry as paper. Today, the Mediterranean basin is warming twice as fast as the global average, making it one of the most vulnerable climate hotspots on Earth. Scientists who study forest systems call this region a giant powder keg that is primed to explode every summer. What used to be a standard 2-week warm spell in July has transformed into months of relentless baking heat that bakes the landscape from June all the way through September. The central tragedy unfolding right now across Spain, France, and Italy is not just that fires are happening, but that they have changed into something completely new. Experts call these modern blazes megafires, which means they burn so hot and spread so fast that standard firefighting rules no longer apply. To see how dangerous this transformation really is, we need to look at what scientists originally expected to happen versus the terrifying reality on the ground today. For many years, forest managers believed that building wide dirt clearings called fire breaks between groups of trees would stop any wildfire in its tracks. The idea was simple and seemed logical. If you remove all the trees and grass from a 50-foot wide strip of land, a fire will run out of fuel and die when it reaches that line. Emergency planners built thousands of these clearings across the forests of Spain and France, feeling confident that towns behind them were safe. When the recent heat wave struck, firefighters discovered that these classic safety lines were completely useless against megafires. The intense heat created by burning pine forests caused the hot air above the flames to rise into the sky at incredible speeds. This created powerful wind currents that sucked in fresh air from all directions, creating localized firestorms with internal temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius. Instead of stopping at a cleared dirt road, these superheated wind gusts picked up burning pine cones and heavy branches, launching them through the air like flaming artillery shells. Burning embers flew over wide rivers, multi-lane highways, and half-mile fire breaks, landing in untouched woods on the other side and sparking brand new blazes instantly. The clearings that were supposed to protect nearby communities were swallowed up in seconds, as if they were never there. This massive gap between expectation and reality left local authorities completely unprepared for the speed of the destruction. In northern and central Spain, fire crews watched in disbelief as small brush fires expanded into massive fire fronts covering dozens of miles in less than 3 hours. Roads that were marked as safe escape routes suddenly became trapped in thick smoke, forcing thousands of residents to flee their homes with only a few minutes of notice. Did you realize that a wildfire can actually jump across a river or 6-lane highway by throwing burning pine cones through the sky? Tell me in the comments if you have ever seen heat conditions this extreme in your own area, and hit the like button if learning these real science facts gives you a fresh perspective on what firefighters are up against. Spain has taken some of the hardest blows in this escalating disaster. with fire consuming vast stretches of land from the central plains to the coastal hills. In provinces like Guadalajara, Zaragoza, and Toledo, heat waves pushed daytime temperatures past 44 degrees Celsius for days on end. The soil became so bone dry that even the roots of deep trees dried out and died beneath the surface, turning the entire landscape into pure kindling. In a single major fire event near Guadalajara, more than 32,000 hectares of forest and grassland were scorched to black ash in a brief period. To put that massive number into everyday perspective, 32,000 hectares is roughly equal to 45,000 full-sized soccer fields combined. An area of land that large, filled with ancient trees, wildlife, and rural farms, was completely erased in a matter of days. Spanish officials originally expected that their modern fleet of water-dropping airplanes and heavy bulldozers would quickly contain any outbreak near major population centers. They believed that by dropping tons of water directly onto the leading edge of the flames, they could cool the fuel down enough for ground crews to move in with hoses. That strategy had worked reliably for decades during normal summer weather. Instead, the extreme surface heat caused the dropped water to vaporize into steam before it could even touch the burning trees. Firefighters reported seeing water dropped from low-flying aircraft disappear into thin air as mist, doing almost nothing to slow down the wall of fire moving through the pine canopy. The flames were consuming trees from the top down, a dangerous phenomenon known as a crown fire, which moves much faster than a fire burning along the ground. The stakes escalated dramatically when smoke plumes began drifting toward the Spanish capital of Madrid, threatening air quality for millions of city dwellers. More than 60,000 people living in suburban communities and rural villages outside the capital were forced to evacuate as flames crept closer to residential neighborhoods. Families loaded pets, important papers, and basic clothing into cars, driving through thick, orange-tinted haze while ash rained down on their windshields. Now here's the detail that most people find the most chilling when looking at the map of Europe. Across the border in France, the situation developed into what the national government described as one of the most challenging crisis events in decades. The southwest region of Gironde, famous worldwide for its historic pine forests and world-class wine vineyards near the city of Bordeaux, became the epicenter of a massive inferno. Over 420 square kilometers of land were scorched in less than 96 hours as winds whipped the flames out of control. 420 square kilometers is an immense area, roughly equivalent to the size of more than 60,000 average city blocks. The Landes forest, which forms part of this region, is the largest man-made forest in all of Western Europe, planted generations ago with millions of resin-rich maritime pine trees. Because pine tree sap is filled with natural oils, these trees do not just burn when ignited, they burst open almost explosively, spreading flammable liquid everywhere. French emergency planners had operated on the belief that their advanced satellite tracking systems and early warning networks would allow them to stop any forest fire before it grew larger than a few hundred acres. Their system was designed to dispatch firefighting trucks within 12 minutes of a smoke report, assuming that fast response times would always keep fires small and manageable. What actually happened surprised even the most experienced emergency commanders in Europe. The heat wave dropped air humidity levels to single digits, turning the thick carpet of pine needles on the forest floor into a continuous fuse of gunpowder. When a fire started, it did not wait for firefighters to arrive. It expanded at speeds faster than a human can run, covering the distance of 3 football fields every single minute. More than 2,500 firefighters gathered in the Gironde region, working 16-hour shifts in suffocating heat to protect towns like Le Porge and surrounding villages. At its most dangerous moment, the main body of the fire raged just 9 miles from the outer edges of Bordeaux, a major city home to hundreds of thousands of people. The sky above the city turned a deep reddish purple, and the smell of burning wood filled the streets for days. Have you ever experienced air quality so bad from distant fires that you could smell smoke inside your own home with all the windows closed? Leave a quick comment below sharing your experience with summer heat waves, and take a moment to subscribe so you never miss our deep dives into major environmental events shaping our world. The disaster in France exposed a sobering truth that national leaders were forced to admit publicly. Officials admitted that no country in Europe currently possesses enough equipment or personnel to fight multiple megafires at the exact same time. The sheer volume of water, trucks, and trained people required to hold back a miles-wide wall of fire simply exceeded the total emergency resources of the nation. Further south, the nation of Italy was battling its own severe crisis along the coastlines and mountainous islands of the Mediterranean. On the island of Sicily, dozens of separate fires broke out simultaneously across dry hillsides, surrounding coastal towns and threatening historic heritage sites. Temperatures across the island shattered local records, soaring toward 45 degrees Celsius and making physical labor dangerous for emergency workers. In the neighboring southern region of Calabria, emergency agencies recorded more than 160 individual wildfires popping up within a single 24-hour period. Fire departments were inundated with thousands of panic calls from residents as flames crept down mountain slopes towards seaside resorts and olive orchards. The rapid spread overwhelmed local fire stations, forcing officials to prioritize saving human lives over protecting property and forest land. Scientists and environmental experts originally believed that Italy's ancient olive groves would act as natural fire breaks because olive trees do not contain the same flammable resins found in pine trees. For generations, farmers relied on these slow-growing, thick-trunked trees to separate wild brush from homes and agricultural fields, assuming they would resist burning during summer fires. The reality on the ground proved far more tragic. Because the drought preceding the heat wave lasted for months without a single drop of rain, the ancient olive trees were stripped of all moisture inside their trunks. The wood was so dry that when radiant heat from nearby burning bushes reached the trees, the centuries-old trunks ignited like dried logs in a fireplace, destroying heritage groves that had stood since ancient times. The loss went far beyond environmental damage, as critical infrastructure across southern Italy began to fail under the extreme heat and fire stress. Power lines melted or short-circuited under the combined heat of the air and nearby flames, leaving hundreds of thousands of homes without electricity or air conditioning during the hottest days of the year. Water pump stations lost power, leaving firefighters with empty hydrants just when they needed water most. The human toll in Italy grew heavy as brave first responders pushed themselves past the point of physical exhaustion. Tragically, firefighters lost their lives while trying to protect rural homes from fast-moving fire fronts that surrounded their vehicles on narrow mountain roads. These losses highlighted the immense danger faced by ground crews, who were often forced to make split-second decisions in blinding smoke and zero visibility. If you are wondering how these fires can possibly get any larger, this next discovery is what blew researchers away completely. To scriptwriters and meteorologists alike, the most terrifying mechanism behind these megafires happens high up in the clouds. When a megafire burns across thousands of acres of dense forest, it generates so much immense heat that it actually begins to alter the local atmosphere directly above the flames. As superheated air rises rapidly into the sky, it carries millions of tons of ash, soot, and moisture high into the upper atmosphere. This powerful upward column of air forms huge dark clouds that closely resemble massive thunderstorm clouds, known scientifically as pyrocumulonimbus clouds. These are literally fire-created storm clouds that build up over the burning forest, reaching altitudes of over 30,000 feet, where commercial jets fly. Scientists originally thought these fire clouds might actually help put out the flames below by producing rain or blocking sunlight to cool the ground. The early theory was that as the hot air cooled down high in the atmosphere, condensed water vapor would fall back to Earth as heavy rain directly onto the burning forest beneath it. Instead, researchers discovered that these firestorms produce what is known as dry lightning. The clouds generate intense electrical activity, shooting hundreds of lightning strikes down to the earth. But the surrounding air near the ground is so hot and dry that any raindrops evaporate long before touching the soil. The lightning strikes land on bone-dry ground miles away from the main fire, igniting dozens of brand new blazes all at once. This terrifying phenomenon means that a megafire can actually reproduce and spread itself across vast distances without any help from ground winds. Firefighters fighting a single line of flame can suddenly find themselves surrounded by 10 new fires, ignited by lightning bolts coming out of a cloud created by the very fire they were trying to put out. It is a self-sustaining cycle of destruction that leaves emergency crews completely outnumbered. How wild is it that a forest fire can actually build its own thunderstorm cloud and shoot lightning to start even more fires miles away? If this incredible earth science fact surprised you, drop a comment with your thoughts, and hit the like button right now to help share this video with other science enthusiasts. Beyond the natural elements of heat, wind, and dry wood, there is another major factor driving this crisis that experts are now investigating across Europe. While extreme weather creates the perfect conditions for megafires, something still has to provide the very first spark that starts the destruction. Investigations in Spain, France, and Italy have revealed a troubling combination of human accident, equipment failure, and deliberate crime. In many cases, fires were ignited by everyday human activities that would be completely harmless during normal moist weather conditions. Sparks from agricultural machinery cutting dry wheat, hot exhaust pipes from cars parked on dry grass along highways, or aging electrical power lines swaying in strong winds and touching tree branches have all started massive blazes. When humidity drops below 10%, the smallest spark can create an uncontainable fire in under 2 minutes. However, police agencies in all 3 countries are also probing numerous cases of suspected arson. In dry summer months, arsonists have intentionally set fires in dense brush near roads, knowing that extreme winds would carry the flames into nearby forests before anyone could stop them. Authorities in Italy and Spain have made several arrests, using high-tech thermal drones and satellite imaging to track individuals spotted near fire startup points. The problem is made far worse by the long-term management of rural land across the southern half of the European continent. Over the past 50 years, European agricultural policies encouraged large-scale industrial farming, which caused millions of small-scale farmers to abandon traditional land practices. Without small herds of animals clearing the undergrowth, and without local woodcutters removing dead timber, the forests became far denser than nature ever intended. When a dense unmanaged forest meets a 50-year heat wave, the result is an environmental disaster that no single country can handle on its own. Forest experts estimate that millions of hectares of wilderness across the Mediterranean basin are currently filled with dead wood and dense brush that has accumulated for decades without being cleared. This massive buildup of fuel means that future fires could burn even hotter and faster unless major changes are made soon. The environmental and economic damage caused by this escalating fire crisis extends far beyond the charred trees and burned homes left behind in the fire zones. The massive smoke plumes generated by the fires in Spain, France, and Italy have drifted thousands of miles across the continent, degrading air quality for tens of millions of people who live nowhere near the flames. Fine particulate matter, carried in wildfire, smoke contains harmful microscopic particles that can penetrate deep into human lungs and enter the bloodstream. Health agencies in cities like Rome, Madrid, and Paris issued urgent air quality alerts, advising children, elderly residents, and people with asthma to stay indoors with air purifiers running. The sky over major European capitals turned a dull, hazy gray, cutting off bright sunlight and dropping midday temperatures slightly under thick smoke blankets. The loss of wildlife across these ancient ecosystems is another tragedy that will take centuries to recover from. Rare species of birds, reptiles, and small mammals that live exclusively in Mediterranean pine forests lost their habitats in a matter of hours. Millions of beneficial insects that pollinate agricultural crops were wiped out, threatening the delicate balance of food production across southern Europe for years to come. Agriculture has taken a massive financial hit that will soon affect grocery prices for consumers all around the globe. Spain is the world's largest producer of olive oil, but hundreds of thousands of olive trees have been turned to ash, and surviving groves are suffering severe heat stress that prevents them from growing fruit. Vineyards in France and fruit orchards in Italy have suffered similar damage, driving up production costs and threatening the livelihoods of thousands of farm families. The total financial cost of fighting these megafires, rebuilding ruined infrastructure, and compensating displaced families is already estimated to reach tens of billions of euros. Insurance companies are warning that covering property in high-risk forest areas may soon become impossible or far too expensive for average families. This financial reality is forcing governments to rethink how towns located near dense forests are designed and protected in the future. Were you aware that wildfire smoke from southern Europe can travel thousands of miles and affect air quality in major cities hundreds of miles away? What do you think governments should do to protect ancient forests from these extreme fires? Put your ideas in the comment section below, and do not forget to share this video with friends who care about global news and nature. Pay close attention to what is happening on the ground at this exact hour, because this crisis is far from over. As we speak, emergency commanders are watching wind forecasts with extreme concern as new heat waves sweep across southern Europe. Firefighters, military units, and emergency volunteers across Spain, France, and Italy are remaining on continuous high alert, knowing that a single shift in wind direction can turn a controlled blaze back into a runaway tower of flame. Every morning brings fresh weather reports warning of extreme fire danger levels across the entire southern half of the continent. Dry air currents blowing from desert regions continue to bake the soil, keeping ground temperatures abnormally high even during the overnight hours. Emergency response teams are sleeping in temporary camps set up near active fire fronts, ready to wake up and deploy at a moment's notice whenever new smoke plumes appear on the horizon. To understand how emergency teams are responding to this ongoing threat, consider how technology is playing a role on the front lines right now. Command centers in major cities are using supercomputers to map out fire movements every 15 minutes, combining satellite data with live drone footage. This allows leaders to send firefighting trucks directly to where the risk is highest, saving critical time when every minute counts. In direct response to this continent-wide emergency, the European Union has activated its Joint Emergency Response System, known officially as the Civil Protection Mechanism. Under this unified crisis arrangement, member nations that are not currently fighting active fires send their specialized equipment and trained personnel directly to help the hardest-hit southern regions. The shared effort represents one of the largest peacetime deployments of emergency workers in European history. Heavy waterbombing aircraft from countries like Sweden, Germany, and France have taken to the skies, flying long missions over remote mountain ranges in Spain and Italy. Ground crews and specialized firefighting vehicles from nations like Poland, Greece, and Romania have driven in long convoys across international borders to reinforce exhausted local fire departments. This international teamwork has saved thousands of homes and protected critical mountain communities from total destruction. However, emergency coordinators at the highest levels warn that this shared network of aircraft, trucks, and firefighters is currently stretched to its absolute limit. If major fires break out simultaneously in Central or Eastern Europe, while the Southern crisis continues, there will simply not be enough specialized planes or trained personnel to go around. National leaders are realizing that relying on shared emergency gear is only a temporary fix for a problem that is growing larger every year. Do you think countries should build a permanent international fleet of firefighting airplanes to respond to climate emergencies worldwide? Share your opinion in the comments below and hit the subscribe button right now if you want to stay informed on how global disasters are being fought with cutting-edge science. What we are witnessing across Southern Europe today is a stark, eye-opening preview of what scientists predict will become the new normal for Mediterranean summers. As global temperatures continue to rise, summer heat waves that used to happen once every 50 years are now arriving every single summer with greater intensity and duration. The margin between a normal hot day and an uncontrollable environmental disaster is getting thinner with each passing season. To protect human lives and preserve what remains of these ancient landscapes, European countries are beginning to implement radical new strategies for managing wild land. Programs are being established to clear accumulated dead wood from forest floors, using controlled low-intensity burns during the wet winter months, mimicking nature's ancient cycle of forest clearing. By intentionally removing excess brush while the ground is damp, experts can prevent megafires from finding fuel when the summer heat returns. Communities living near forest borders are also changing how they design their surrounding landscapes to create protective buffers around homes and roads. Forestry departments are planting fire-resistant deciduous trees like oaks, maples, and chestnuts around suburban neighborhoods to form natural green barriers. Unlike resin-heavy pine trees, these broad-leafed species hold much more water in their leaves and burn far slower, giving firefighters a stable line to defend when fires approach. At the exact same time, cutting-edge technology is being brought into the fight against wild blazes across the continent. Engineers are deploying artificial intelligence systems that analyze satellite pictures, wind movements, and soil moisture readings in real time to predict where fires are most likely to start hours before any flame appears. Early detection drones equipped with high-powered thermal cameras are flying continuous patrols over isolated forest regions, looking for tiny heat spots so ground crews can put out small sparks before they grow into monsters. Scientists are also testing new types of fire retardant sprays that can be dropped from planes to form a heat-proof shell around vulnerable trees and buildings. These eco-friendly chemicals stick to leaves and branches, creating a temporary shield that prevents wood from catching fire even when exposed to direct flames. Experiments in trial forest areas have shown promising results, offering another potential tool to protect communities located deep in high-risk zones. Furthermore, public education programs are being expanded across Southern Europe to teach citizens how to prepare their homes before the dry season begins. Simple actions, such as clearing dead leaves from roof gutters, storing firewood away from house walls, and planting low flammability shrubs near porches, can mean the difference between a house surviving a passing fire or being destroyed. When thousands of homeowners take these small steps, whole towns become far more resilient to wildfire threats. Local communities are also forming volunteer observer networks to keep watch over nearby woods during peak heatwave alerts. Equipped with basic radios and mobile reporting apps, these resident watches monitor key entry points to wild areas and report suspicious activity or smoke immediately. This grassroots involvement creates an extra layer of protection, ensuring that remote areas remain under watchful eyes even when official emergency services are fully occupied elsewhere. In addition to ground surveillance, robotic ground vehicles are being developed to assist human firefighters in high-risk environments. These heavy, remote-controlled bulldozers can cut fire lines through dense brush where heat levels would kill a human operator in minutes. By sending machines into the hottest zones first, emergency teams can clear fuel gaps safely without putting human lives directly in the path of superheated flame fronts. Another innovative technology gaining traction across the region involves using thermal imaging satellites in low Earth orbit. These advanced space sensors can detect sudden temperature spikes in remote forests within minutes, automatically alerting local fire departments before a smoke column even becomes visible to human eyes. This rapid space-based detection gives ground crews a critical head start when fighting fires during dry, high-wind days. Water conservation technology is also becoming a key priority for European fire departments, facing severe drought conditions. New firefighter nozzles mix water with specialized foam concentrates, producing a thick blanket that smothers flames while using 80% less liquid than traditional hoses. This allows fire engines to operate much longer in remote rural areas where water tanker trucks face long transit times over rough mountain terrain. In areas where fires have already passed, scientists and landowners face the massive challenge of soil restoration and erosion prevention. When intense fire bakes the soil, it creates a water-repellent layer on the surface that prevents rain from soaking into the ground. When autumn rains eventually arrive, water rushes over the scorched earth, causing massive mudslides and washing away fertile topsoil that took thousands of years to form. To prevent this secondary disaster, restoration teams are spreading straw and planting fast-growing native grasses to stabilize bare hillsides before heavy rains begin. Forestry experts are also carefully choosing which tree species to plant during post-fire reforestation projects across destroyed regions. Instead of replanting dense rows of resinous pine trees that burn rapidly, managers are introducing mixed ecosystems containing native broadleaf trees, shrubs, and open clearings. This natural diversity makes future forests far more resilient to disease, drought, and extreme wildfire events over long periods. Looking toward the coming decades, environmental planners emphasize that adapting to megafires requires a complete rethinking of how human society interacts with wild spaces. City planners are creating strict building codes that require non-flammable roof materials, hardened double-pane windows, and ember-resistant vents for all new construction near forested areas. By building smarter, communities can reduce the likelihood that a forest fire will transform into a residential catastrophe. International insurance providers are also pushing local governments to improve wildland infrastructure before offering coverage to regional businesses. Funding is being directed toward constructing large underground water reservoirs in remote mountain areas, providing helicopter dipping tanks that save precious flight time during emergency operations. These proactive infrastructure investments ensure that emergency crews have immediate access to water when blazes break out in isolated terrain. Scientists studying regional climate models stress that southern Europe must prepare for longer dry seasons that extend well beyond the traditional summer months. Spring droughts and warm autumn winds mean that fire risk can remain high for 8 or 9 months out of the year rather than just July and August. Recognizing this extended threat allows emergency management agencies to keep trained personnel and specialized gear ready year-round, rather than relying on seasonal contracts. This ongoing battle against runaway forest fires is not just a localized problem for residents in Spain, France, or Italy. It is a vital topic that affects every single person on our planet. It demonstrates in plain, undeniable terms how closely connected our weather patterns, our land management choices, and our everyday safety truly are. The decisions we make today regarding energy usage, forestry practices, and environmental protection will directly determine whether future generations inherit healthy green forests or scorched empty wilderness. When we see entire mountain ranges transformed into ash in a matter of days, it serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile our modern living spaces really are. Nature works according to strict physical laws that do not care about human schedules, property lines, or political borders. Learning to understand those natural laws and finding ways to live safely alongside changing weather patterns is one of the greatest responsibilities facing humanity today. If you made it all the way to the end of this story, thank you so much for taking the time to learn about these vital Earth events with us today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit the subscribe button right now, turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next upload, and drop a comment down below answering this question: do you believe modern technology will eventually stop megafires? Or must humans change how we live near nature? Also, share this video with a friend or family member who loves deep science stories, and we will see you in the very next upload.